Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is School Transitions in an Era of Uncertainty. So what we're really wanting to do is have a conversation that's nourishing and soothing for you, your mind, your mental load, and your nervous system, but that also helps you prepare your own body, mind, and nervous system so that you're in the best possible place to support your child as they make any transition that might be happening for you right now. And obviously, conversely, when our children are transitioning, so too are we. So that's where we want to take the conversation today.
It is. And it comes about because my 5-year-old's about to start school transition. And, you know, these are the school transitions that almost never happened, right? Like, because we've only just come out of lockdown and parents still aren't really allowed on site. And so it's been very like, you know, is this going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Are they going to really know what they're in for next year? So I'm grateful that that's happening. But I thought, wow, like, it's not just me. There's lots of parents, particularly like in Eastern Australia, who really need to have a look at this and not just kind of like, you know, push the little baby bird out of the nest and go, here you go, nor be so entangled with their fear of how their child's going to go that, you know, we actually hold them back in doing finding that beautiful dance. I think in between those two places is the goal, and that's what I'd love to talk through.
So how are you finding, like, where are you finding yourself and where is Sylvie finding herself right now? Like, can you paint us a picture of what that looks like as a transition phase for you right now?
Yeah, it's really super interesting. So she's been in kinder for, you know, a number of years, and in a perfect, like, if she could write her own, like, desired education pathway, this would be what she would write. Okay, so it's like nature play, it's like totally self-directed, outside, full of animals, like just cannot get enough of it. And so I personally have had this feeling of, oh God, like, how is she going to go in the structure and you know, lack of play-based learning often that's in school. And so that's been playing on my mind, but I've been like pretty regulated through it, knowing that I think she'll be okay. And
Can I just ask before you move on, have you considered keeping her in that style of education or homeschooling? Like, is that part of your sphere right now?
Yeah, look, if I had a really strong sense that we were going to be having another year like this year, I would consider it. However, what's held me back from doing that is I do know the value of having some kind of prep experience before a child moves into like grade 1 or grade 2, because they're very different. Like my experience, certainly in the school experiences I've had, is that prep is largely a pretty gentle you know, introduction into school, and it's very slow and it's focused a lot on well-being and socialization. And whereas once you get to grade 1 or 2, there's a lot more focus on the academics and on the curriculum. And so I thought, yes, I could give her another year at home, but she may miss, or give her another year in her kinders, but she may actually miss the value of that foundation in a school setting. So that's what's kept me in the system.
So does that for you then, it's almost like a test run? Like, let's find this, it's almost like a mid place for you between where she's been, self-directed nature play, to academic based focused classroom. You see prep as like a gentle introduction or crossover between the two?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I still think I can still recall like my son's first prep, and it was like the first interview like in March or something with the teacher, and the teacher's like, now he could work on the curve of his J a little more. And I'm thinking like, this is so not important to me in the scheme of things, but I get like that's for many people it's like, quick literacy numeracy, let's get onto it. So that kind of thing, I guess I'm a little concerned about that happening too soon, when I can see so many other things I think need to happen first before that happens. But I do think I have like kind of this 1 foot in the system and 1 foot out, kind of like going, I know that there's more, which I think is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it means that I don't feel trapped, because I know there's so many other ways to do this. But it can mean also that I'm not 100% fully whole body invested as well.
Totes.
Right? Like
I totally hear it. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I find myself. But ultimately that offers me a lot of flexibility, because it means that moving into another year of uncertainty, I can like create something if it turns to shit and help myself and her transition through that. Like find the resilience through that, I suppose, what I'm seeking.
So come back to your story then. So Sylvia's for prep, you can see where she's come from and what her ideal style of learning would be based on who you know her to be, and what you know the school system to be, because she's your second, and you've chosen to really as a full body go, I'm backing the prep experience, which creates a level of certainty for you and then for her to follow, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so then what that looks like for me is, okay, well, knowing that I'm taking her to something that is well outside her realm of understanding or safety, right? Because the brain's always looking for safety and predictability. And so much of school resistance in the early years is also about, this feels really hard. I don't know. There's no safety here. So part of my work is, okay, establishing her values and helping her to see how they can be met there, and also helping her to establish a sense of safety and moving toward that thing that feels difficult.
What does that mean, to establish and meet her values?
So to really observe and continually come back to who is she right now? So what does her life demonstrate that she's most inspired by? What is she, when she's hanging out with friends, what are they talking about? What are they playing? What does she lose time doing? What does she want to tell us about? And also for me to take away my attachment to what I think it needs to be, and like my judgments, because part of like trusting our children is to also go like, God, that thing I don't really like them doing, what are they getting out of it? Like she's going through this obsession at the moment with playing Mario Kart on the DS, Nintendo Switch. And I was like, oh God, like it hits all my edges around screens. But I can see what she's doing. Like for her, I think she's actually helping to wire her brain, because she's very left brain. And what that requires for her is for her to have the control of her hands, and to be able to like know that this hand's touching this controller, this hand's touching this controller. And as she moves that, her brain's talking, it's almost like a crossing the midline activity that has happening with her. And she's also talking about numbers, and like she's learning about like ranking. And so she's learning these things that, yes, in my idealized version of how she might learn those things, it wouldn't look like it's on the screen, but there's something that she's getting out of this, is something meaningful for her. And so I have to dance that edge of supporting her to get what she wants out of it, and holding a boundary that I can see kind of regulates that usage, right? That kind of says, I'm the gatekeeper to technology and to highly stimulatory activity, that kind of holds a safety for us both. But that's what it takes, because it's like, okay, well, how can I look for like the form of what I want her to learn? Or where is it already happening for her, and it's there in that form? And so how can I love that, so that then we can steer it where I want it to go, which ultimately for her, it's going to be we're going to be learning numbers and like letters and stuff in the school system. And so how can I help you meet that? And also it's then, how do I say yes and create more opportunity for her meeting the people that she's going to be going to school with, and engaging in community that can hold her in her schooling experience as well as me holding her in that school experience.
What does that mean?
So that means, you know, me building relationships with other school parents and other mothers and helping me orient to that experience through the mirror of other mothers having that experience as well. Because when you put yourself in that situation, you then get to be reminded of all those pieces of you that are also trying to move through and transition as well through the mirror of seeing other people's experience. It looks like me putting her in a NIPPERS program because I know it's going to be full of local families who have similar values, who will likely also be sending their children to the school. So it's just looking at what things can I put around her to help her feel anchored and held in a big shift for her. And then how can I also be the solid ground for her to land on when that feels really hard or when she has conflict? Because and even it's happening now, like it's even happening. And I was saying to you before we started recording, like, you have to laugh because how functional even the conflict, she's been having a little bit of conflict at kinder because there was an incident where unfortunately the children thought it would be fun to put some baby chicks in some water, and the baby chicks can't swim. Now the baby chicks were okay, fortunately, but the carer was extremely upset and angry that the children had done this, and Sylvie was somehow wrapped up in it, and I think it was quite a traumatic experience for everybody. And so what's come up is that she doesn't want to go back. She never wants to go back. I never wanted to go. Why can't you cancel, Mum? She's saying to me today, why can't you just cancel it? And I said to her, yeah, I really hear you want me to cancel it. You really don't want to go right now. But I love you so much. And so that means that sometimes I'm going to love you through the hard things. And this is a hard thing. And so she's crying and crying, and we're working through it. And then we get to the point where I'm only going for 5 minutes. And so she's given a bit more. I'm only going if you stay with me. And then we got to the point of, I'm only going if you pick me up and you pick me up earlier. Right. So but I'm holding myself and all the parts of me that feel like she has to go, or that also feel like, oh gosh, maybe there's more that happened that I don't know about, and maybe that's really why she doesn't want to go. And then that more solid part of me that feels like, no, I actually think she's just thinking about it is re-experiencing the pain and the aching heart that it felt like for her carer, who she has such a great relationship with, to be disappointed in her and angry with her, and that she doesn't want to go back to that and have to re-experience those feelings. But actually her highest values are on the other side of her walking through that.
What does that mean? Can you spell that out a bit more?
So that means that everything that she loves, like the riding the horses and the caring for the guinea pigs and the playing with all of her friends and the endless hours just in nature tinkering, all the things she loves are on the other side of her meeting the pain of having to see her teacher who's upset with her or was upset with her. And I don't want her to miss out on everything she loves because of the part of her that feels afraid. But I also don't want to force her. So it's this gentle kind of holding of an energy that says, I trust you, and I'm here to listen, and I'm here to work with you on how it could feel more okay.
Yeah. And how do you as a mum wrestle with that concept of, oh gosh, is this the right place for her? Can I trust this carer? Like, how do you do that wrestle?
Yeah. For me, I mean, that's I feel like that's a felt sense thing. And I guess in this case, I don't have a felt sense that there's anything off.
Yeah.
But in the past with like care providers or just places, I go by feeling. And if I just don't like the feeling.
How do you know that in your body?
It's like a dense drop in my body, like just like a, not a visceral trigger drop. It's just like a no. It's like my body just says no. And there's kind of, there's not really any wavering with it. It's just like a no, this doesn't, like I just know this doesn't feel good.
And it really sounds like you've learned to trust that and make actions based on that body sensation.
Yeah.
How have you learned to do that rather than, oh, you know, there's all the reasons why that doesn't make any sense and I should just, you know, continue onwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. How have I learned to do that? It's a really good question.
Have you had incidences where you didn't listen to that and something bad happened?
No, I think I know it from myself in my own body and just listening to it. Like in my own body, where I've been places where I've felt unsafe and I've done things to avoid what I perceive is like the risk. And that same kind of thing comes up again. And so I listen to that with my children. And I follow that.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, so far, touch wood, I'm pretty discerning on like who I would leave my children with or what environment I would put them in.
Totally. Yeah. But you felt your way through that, really.
But I felt my way through that. And I had, you know, like I think right back to like thinking about sending my first son to childcare centres and different places, and I would know the minute I walked in if he was going to go there or not, based on how it felt. And I think because it was such a high value to me, it wasn't something that I was going to coerce myself into. I had to keep experiencing the potential realities until the one that felt right was presented to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have this body sense of this is actually a really safe place.
Yeah.
So then you've taken a higher minded approach of this dynamic that's been set up and pulled some gold out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So which is, like I'm sitting there with her on the floor, like I've got her crying in my arms and I've got Pearl climbing all over me because she wants attention too. And I'm thinking, oh God, is this here to break Sylvie's infatuation with her carer who she adores, to help her connect to herself as she prepares to transition into an environment where she may have a teacher she doesn't like, or different people caring for her who she struggles with. Yeah.
Or even just so she's more ready to leave that person.
Yeah. And so
when you don't like someone, you don't want to be around them so much.
Exactly. So there's this now that there's less entanglement for her. There's so less. Good. So then I was like, I don't actually need to change anything here. Like there's nothing that I need to fix. I just need to hear her.
And how wonderful too, I thought when you told me that story, I thought, wow, how wonderful for our children also to see that humans are human and they have both sides.
Totally.
Because I also think that equilibrates us as parents for them as well, to go, oh, wow, okay, this super sweet person who that's all I've known of them also is ferocious and angry and the things that I might have seen in mum and dad too.
Yeah. Yeah. And also too, I think it's kind of less confusing for the child when they can see that we can accept that nuance within a person versus us deny our shadow so much that we cannot accept that in another.
Yes, because if you did that, you're like, no way, you don't get to be that other side. You cannot, you're not safe for my child. I'm not here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, which would mean it's not okay in yourself either.
Yeah, and also which is likely going to mean like I've got a like roaring rageful shadow that I can't own.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. As you were saying that too, I was thinking both my kids in grade 6 by the last 6 months of grade 6 have hated primary school, hated their teacher. And I'm like, oh, that's so functional. Whereas up until, you begin grade 6, which for here in Australia, if you're not in Australia, is our last year of primary school before they transition into what we call high school. And I'm always been like, oh gosh, it's such a beautiful, sweet, tiny clothed environment where they're so loved and known and like so safe. And, how are they going to go being these tiny fish in this big school where no one knows them and no one really cares and, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then at some point, 6 months down the track, they're like, I'm out of here. I'm done.
I've left building.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I get it. It's so functional. Yeah, which is totally what I hear represented here in that same transition between leaving preschool and entering school.
Yeah. And so then you can, it just provides so much more freedom, because then it's not something that I have to fix. It's just something that I have to help her rise to.
And her nervous system to regulate and process.
Yeah. And so if in fact every time she's bringing me her big feelings, that's just her using me to try to regulate, then I can see that as really functional as well, and not something that I need to avoid or think that I'm doing something wrong about. Like, she's just bringing me stuff that she's trying to work through, and the more I can regulate myself through it and see it as functional for her to meet and to go through, the more freedom it gives her to actually move through it and not cycle inside it.
Totes. Have you met other prep parents for next year, or you haven't?
Yeah, I know a few, because there's quite a few siblings of my son's.
So you know some based on community, but if you were entering this school for the first time because of what COVID, how COVID has impacted our schooling and therefore transition periods, you would know no one. Is that right? I wouldn't,
and in fact that was the case with Hugo when he started this. That's why I joined Nippers, because I knew that there was a good chance that there would be families that would have under 6s joining the school and the Nippers. So
Nippers is a life-saving program on the beach and in our oceans, just so everyone knows. So
obviously that's not something that everybody can access, but there's certainly ways and means to tap into the community that's likely to be, engaged with the school and with your child.
It doesn't matter how it is in community, just get community.
Get community. And a big thing too is playing at the school. Like, go to the school as much as you can, play on the play equipment. Our school also has a farmer's market. Go to the farmer's market as much as you can if something that's at your school.
Do you know what anxieties other prep parents are going through at the moment about uncertainty? And
I really think it is. I mean, I think a lot of prep parents are probably thinking, how am I going to do it all again if this all turns again? And, trying to balance the preps' learning needs and social emotional needs with their work needs and their home needs. And I mean, I don't think any of us have a crystal ball, but I also don't think any of us are as foolish to think that this is all completely over with either. So I think to that end, it would be, again, like what you and I have talked about around coming out of lockdown. It's like lockdowns and the pandemic have been this great edit, whether we wanted it or not. And so as we open up and go back into the world, we get to choose what goes back in. And I think particularly beginning a new school year, or even with our transitions, which are happening with the kinder and school kids at the moment, it's to be getting really clear on what are your family values and what is it that you really want to support your child with as they move into this new year. What do they need from you? And what do you need to be able to provide that to them? Because there's so many mothers who are spent as well.
Totes.
Right? Like whose nervous systems are shot. Which, and who may not have the capacity for what kids who are going through transition bring. Like, kids who are about to start prep, they will regress. They will, I'm looking out for it. Baby play, big emotions, pretending they're 2 again. And if you're not aware of that and seeing that as purposeful and part of their own processing, then that can feel like another thing. And it can bring on more anxiety as a parent, because you're thinking, oh no, they're not going to ever be ready. And like, they're supposed to be going to school and they're acting like this. I would just look at your child and go, okay, what if exactly what they're doing is exactly what they need? And so what do I need to be able to make that okay as they move through that?
And what have you found in your own self-questioning or exploration in what you need to be able to provide what Sylvie needs?
For me, I need to continue to keep orienting back to what I want for her and what I want for me in terms of my relationship with her, which is that we can stay in connection and that I can hold her when it feels really big for her. And so for me, that means keeping front of mind my values in parenting and my bigger picture, rather than getting stuck in, you know, reactivity in parenting, which is what can happen when we don't have our focus there. And also, you know, what do I need for my own base level, which is enough sleep, good food, my own life beyond mothering, you know, my relationship to be functioning really well, you know, all of those kind of pillars that really have to hold me up so I can hold her up.
Totally.
Just a brief interruption to this week's podcast to check in if you too are preparing for your child to start school kinder or something new and big in 2022. If that's you, and like me, you would love to feel really supported and as part of a community working through your own stuff and preparation for it, I invite you to join Reimagining Motherhood. For the next 6 months, beginning on the 1st of December, we are going to be doing all things transitions and integrating transitions for both ourselves as mothers and also for our children. You can join for 6 months for $250, or for a special for just 10 people, I've got an upgrade to $333 to also have a 1-hour one-to-one with me to work through your own blocks and resistance and find some more spaciousness as you head into the transitions of 2022. Find out more at bridgetwood.life.
What do you see as yourself or other prep parents that you just happen to be in the orbit of bringing or feeling about the transition that might get in the way?
I see some trepidation around like how well schools are going to be able to cope with the needs of these kids who've had pretty fractured kind of experience, you know, like that they really haven't had a solid ground to kind of stand on. They've been in and out of kinder or childcare or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
I know it's your little person on the door.
You hear my daughter? So
it's a podcasting mother life.
Yeah. Yes. My toddler is struggling with the fact that I am unavailable right now. I think that uncertainty is a big one. I think, you know, wondering if their children are kind of ready, like, to make that leap, and wondering if the, you know, like the teachers can meet that, if, you know, as parents we can meet what's going to come home. Yeah. Because, you know, I certainly am, like, particularly with this child of mine, expecting that I need to leave an hour after school every day for whatever rage, tears,
totes,
whatever's going to be there, and see that as just something that I expect so that I can move toward it and not feel overwhelmed by it. And so it's me, like, looking in, you know, now about, well, what needs to be set up in my family
so that I've got that hour.
Facilitate that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So when you say parents might be questioning, is my child ready? Can the teachers meet their needs? Do you perceive that that's an inward conversation on where we say, is your child ready? Am I ready? And can the teacher meet their needs? Can I meet their needs?
Yeah, because that's that question. Whatever we're questioning outside of us is also us trying to figure that out within ourselves. And we're trying to do it outside of ourselves as a way to stretch ourselves to meet that too. And to compel ourselves to take the action that might be necessary. So being on the front foot with the school about your child's particular needs, so that can be considered as they make classes. Yeah. You know, to be able to potentially, if you think your child's going to struggle, setting up your work or your, you know, other support system so that, you know, you give that child a day off every 2 weeks, you know, or whatever you think you might need to help that child who is more, perhaps, you know, additional needs, or just a child who may not be quite ready for the structure of school, for you to have some flexibility in your own life to be able to move with that.
Totally. Do you perceive that because when we go through transitions and our children go through transitions, it's a phase where we're called to let go of identity, or our current identity is up for renegotiation?
Yeah.
Have you witnessed that part in yourself?
I feel it like less so because I don't, it's not like my child starting school. Like it's not like it's my first child starting school and it's not my last child starting school. Like I'm kind of in this like middle process. So it's less identity shifting for me.
Yeah.
But like I really remember tapping in this year to a lot of the mothers who it was their last child starting school, and I could feel the pain of that. Like so I tapped into, wow, like that's big. And even the parent with the first child starting school, like there's nothing quite like that. Like it's huge. So both of those I think you've got to make space for, because any kind of identity shift is huge, and there needs to be a grieving and a letting go and a processing and a just going as slow as the, you know, or as fast as the slowest part of yourself in that process, and really making space for it. Because the more you can allow that to complete within you, the more that you can actually move into creation of who you're becoming, versus kind of spinning the wheels, feeling in this middle grey zone of unfulfillment and not knowing whether you're here or there because you haven't actually allowed that to move through you.
Yeah, totally. So it sounds like you're really moving with that identity shift really beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I can kind of see she's like so ready and she'll embrace it, and then there'll be all parts of her that will struggle. But isn't that all of us in all of our growth?
Totally. Is there any part of you that feels scared that now you'll only have one at home?
Yeah, I haven't given a lot of thought to that yet. I think that's my next thing, is like, what's that going to look like for us? Because that's different.
Yeah, it is. Now there's no playmate.
There's no playmate.
Yeah, you're it.
I'm it. And
I remember being scared of that.
Yeah. And I know you have been, and I know it's had brought up challenges for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my next thing, is like, okay, what am I going to do for Pearl? Like what does she need from me? What do I need to be enjoying being in a relationship with her a lot, right?
Yes.
So that's part of the consideration too. And also making space for her to have big feelings about her sister going to school.
Yeah, totes.
Because it's big for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And it shifts dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, 100%. What do you think it means to I often wonder, in times of transition, we're always called into which do we trust more, our children's, or which do we see more, our children's strength and capability, or their vulnerability and weakness. Do you see that play out in transitions like you're witnessing at the moment?
Yeah, and it's funny, like I've really been playing with that idea or those questions in relationship to Sylvie compared to how I felt like with Hugo, because he's, you know, a bit more neurotypical, didn't really have any concerns about, okay, he's pretty like, he could fit school, right? Like he's kind of like round peg, round hole. Can't say he loves it all, but he can fit it. Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of concerns with him, whereas I have a few more concerns with her because she's just a little different. And I don't know how well school does different. And
yeah,
that's my concern. You know?
No, I really do. Yeah. I think school does different incredibly well in terms of, if we're talking about neurotypical or neurodiverse, does it incredibly well with a diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without a diagnosis, no support structures. So I think that's a much harder battle.
And I mean, and because I can sense that, I mean, that's what I emailed the assistant principal just to flag this, because I would really like her to be placed with a teacher who has some sensitivity. Yeah. Children who are wired a little different.
Yeah.
I don't have high expectations, but
an experienced teacher is worth their weight in gold in prep.
Yeah, and that's what I'm actually gunning for. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they're worth their weight in gold. 100%.
Yeah. So I think also too, there's that piece of like, why am I a bit more worried about her? And I think it is that she's just a little bit different. But like every different kid, their difference is also where their brilliance is. Like the difference of what they have is compensation for like where their brilliance is somewhere else. But the challenge is in a system that can be missed. You know, in a system that's looking for you to show up this way, your gifts and your brilliance can easily be missed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
How do you trust or reorient towards her strength and capability when you might be having moments of perceiving risk or vulnerability?
Yeah, it's really looking at, for me, how do I celebrate that part of her and create room for that part to grow and to flourish, even when even when that kind of like the more, what do we want to call it, like schoolish parts of her are going to be what they're going to want from her. Where do I create room for her to really lose herself in her imaginative play and, you know, her focus areas, and, you know, be sensitive to where maybe those scales are not tipping very well, and be really relaxed about taking days off and going places and doing things that support that. I'm not really concerned about her having days off school either to rest or to be able to expand more of who she is outside of a system.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that ultimately will be, you know, I think in a changing world, being able to be in a system and navigate a system, I think it's empowering. I think it can be empowering for our kids, but it depends a lot on how much emphasis we put on school for our kids and like their grades and what their teachers say, versus, you know, who we know them to be and are becoming and what we want for them.
Totally. And what else is possible in a world that school will only tell you is a very narrow lens.
Yeah. And even just challenging like schoolish things like student of the week and like all of the stuff that can be focusing all about rewarding and behavior management, and to get beyond that and help my children see beyond that too.
Totally. Is there anything else that you feel like you're considering or preparing yourself for the school transition at this time of uncertainty?
Yeah, I think a big thing too is also just continuing to come back to like my own radical clarity on what I value or my family values versus what we've been told to value by society and just by authority, and to continue to come back to who is this child and who am I and what do we need to thrive, and being willing to challenge things in order to have that met, while also contributing meaningfully to community and seeing how we can create change where change is needed through that community. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to leave mothers with, or just parents with, who might be considering that maybe they're a little bit worried or unnerved at this time of transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just offering yourself grace, first of all, in like your feelings around it, and that to listen to them and to find people who will listen with you to your own feelings so you can kind of untangle them.
Yeah.
And then I also invite you to hop into our free Facebook group, where I'm going to be doing a session on getting you and your child ready for school or kinder. And I say you and your child because it's like both of you. Totally. It's not just about getting your child ready. Like that,
we never just do something to the child.
No, it is a entangled process.
Yeah.
So that's happening this week on Thursday. What date is Thursday? Thursday, the 18th of November. Hop into our group.
What time is that?
I will tell you later because I don't know.
Sorry. I was like, what Melbourne time is that? So everyone can work it out.
Yeah. Just hop into the group. If you're not already in the group, on Facebook, hop in the group because it is awesome. That's where we pop all of our podcast live streams so you can see the behind the scenes. And it's where we do other bits and pieces like free trainings or circles or anything that's happening in our world. So you can find it on Facebook. It's called Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Yeah, please jump in. It's a free, beautiful little closed community.
It is.
So if we want to go further with you, Bridgie, how can we do that? in December?
Yeah. So I've got something brewing. So our very successful transitions toolkit is morphing to be supported by 6 months in reimagining motherhood with monthly focus on transitions with a bunch of incredible leaders in their fields and spaces to really nourish all of our journeys, whether it's our children transitioning to school or kinder or childcare or somewhere new, so that we can feel really supported, and whether in the lead up to that transition and also as we go the first few months into it. So that's going to begin on the 1st of December. So you can find out more about that offer on my socials and also at bridgetwood.life.
That's so beautiful. My whole body just kind of swooned when you went, it's that, but it's supported by me holding you essentially for 6 months.
You need
like, it's like having a doula through the transition for yourself so that you can be the best mum you can be, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's super nourishing. Just so you know, my whole body like went, yeah.
And I think it's kind of probably because it's what I would have loved. Like first time
Me too. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, imagine a world where we had that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where you had a place to bring like your fears and your anxieties and what's showing up in the family dynamic and
be held by a mother who can take on that role of elder and help you or lead you through a process. So you don't have to lead yourself all of the time.
Yeah. Thank you. That feels rich.
Sounded rich. Just reflecting the same energy that came out.
I know. You helped me sink back into it more.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? It's like a ping pong. So nice. I love it. Nice.
And what's going on in your world, Jules?
Well, I actually was thinking it's a slowing down actually, because I'm taking December off to sink into my husband's 50th.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And for the first time in so many years, you and I, Bridgie, are normally kind of pretty busy in December doing advent calendars and preparing for what was happening for Nourishing the Mother in January. And this year I'm like, no, it's been a really intense year with a lot of holding, and I've created 3 courses in 4 months. Yeah. So I'm looking at that going, no, I'm having December as my rest and restore. So you are coming into my spaces and taking all of my people through a process of reconciling the year that has been so that they're ready to move forwards in January when I pick them back up again.
I'm so looking forward to it, and I feel very honoured to be moving.
No, it feels so nourishing and beautiful. I just kind of love that about community is I can go, I know the grace and the holding that you're going to bring to Honey Club and to my business people in Wildflower, and just like the same thing with parenting, right? We can never be anyone's everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does it look like to go, here's a great caregiver. Here's another one. Like, let's build attachments and gain their genius. And like, I just see the community spaces that certainly I run. And I imagine you're the same as like parenting. I don't want to do it alone.
Yeah.
I want there to be influence from other people's nervous system, other people's wounds, other people's genius, because that's what makes you best.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's like a melting pot of like all of the right.
Yeah. So you can certainly jump into Honey Club. We're finishing off this month on polarity, and then Bridgie's doing a rest and restore for the whole year in December, and then I'll be back in January. So you can find out more at julietenner.love. But that's me. I'm kind of feeling like I'm finishing off Lover School and onto loving my man well, and just really sinking into that transition.
Oh God, I just feel that.
Like it's intense, you know, and I really want to be there for that celebration and that transition. So I'm actually really looking forward to it.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks. Thanks. So connect to us is nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. Come find our free group, because it's where all of the things happen and you get private access to the live streamed podcasts ahead of release. And that's Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner, which you can search on your Facebook. We would love if you have 5 seconds to do an iTunes or a Facebook review, because it just helps other mamas and people in the world for whom need a bit of soul medicine as they move through their own transitions. So thank you for listening.
Yes, remember to nourish someone to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.